Hi, my name is Gwen Pedersen. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of Minnesota. I have practiced for 18 years in mental health. My primary focus has been on counseling with individuals, couples, and families, and I've counseled individuals of all ages. Informally, I've studied natural nutrition over the last 17 years after finding out my oldest child had food allergies, and I've also attended many workshops on nutrition and mental health. Dr. Baumgartner has gone over aspects of nutritional changes with you, health changes, and body changes in his presentations on Rejuv University. Today I am here to talk to you about changes from a psychological, mental health, and a systems perspective. Many times when we attempt to make changes and work hard to do so, we find ourselves falling back into old patterns after a period of time or even reaching goals that we thought we would be able to maintain. I'll educate you on the process of change and what systems get in the way of us moving forward with our goals. I will give you a background to empower you to not fall back into old patterns again. I'll share a little bit of my health story with you. It began as an infant. I contracted a life-threatening illness when I was a baby, and I was hospitalized for 10 days and put on IV antibiotics. From there, my immune system was compromised and I had many childhood illnesses. My mom would joke that I would come down with every illness that went through school and lose days of school every year. And as I kind of moved into middle school, high school years, my family was busy and my parents both worked, and we had a lot of convenience foods, easy foods. There were times that maybe meals were made from scratch, but oftentimes they weren't, and I just kind of developed a liking for those easy to find meals and that junk food and things like that. As I got into college, I was very busy in studying, and especially in grad school, and Diet Coke became my best friend, along with just kind of food from the vending machines or even fast food from the cafeteria. And maybe from time to time I would bring like an apple and a granola bar, or I'd get a salad at the cafeteria or something, but for the most part I was very attached to my Diet Coke. As I kind of moved into the early stages of my career and had my first child and started discovering that he had some food issues and some health issues as well, I started studying more about natural nutrition and started making some changes. And as the years went on, I had developed kind of fluctuating thyroid issues, as well as in my early 30s was experiencing a lot of digestive health issues that had stemmed from childhood but had gotten worse. And then ultimately I ended up with some perimenopausal symptoms. And so at that point, it was right around the time that we had gone to a physician that had recommended that my son be taken off of gluten and dairy, and I decided to make those changes for myself as well. And I noticed a dramatic increase in improvement in my digestive health, and then I started embracing a lot of the natural changes and nutritional changes that Dr. Baumgartner has spoken to you about that helped me kind of re-regulate some of the hormonal changes and problems that I was having at that stage in my life. And so that's kind of my story as we start to look at how do we make these changes in life. You've come here hoping to get healthier, maybe get more fit, feel better, and so I'm here to talk to you about, from a psychological perspective, how we can do that more effectively without falling back into some of those old patterns and ruts that we're accustomed to being in. This is the series called Successful Change, and the information in this series is intended for educational purposes only. I'm going to introduce you to the stages of change. I shared with you my story of change. I'm still on that journey to change, but it begins with stage 1, and in stage 1 it's considered to be kind of like the pre-contemplation stage, where people are not quite ready yet. They're not thinking seriously about change just yet. They tend to defend current or old bad habits. They don't feel that the bad habits are a problem to them. And when other people approach them and maybe introduce the idea that change would be helpful to them, they tend to get defensive and feel pressured and sometimes even shut down. Stage 2 is considered to be the contemplation stage, where they're getting ready. They're more aware of the consequences of the bad habits. They spend some time thinking about their problems, and they start thinking about the potential for change. During this stage, people tend to teeter-totter, maybe weighing pros and cons of making changes. People are a little bit more open to change at this stage, and they're more willing to take in some information and some education. Stage 3 is considered to be the preparation or determination, I'm ready type of stage. During this stage, people have made a commitment to making the change they desire. They begin taking small steps towards change. They actively seek out resources in helping them achieve their goals. I really want to emphasize that even if you're in a place where you feel like you know what you're doing, this is still an important stage to get as much help and information as you can so that your journey will be more successful in the long run. Stage 4 is considered to be the action or the willpower stage. The willpower stage is the shortest of all the stages. It can last anywhere from a day to 6 months. People are starting to believe in their own ability to make changes in their behavior and actively get involved in taking steps towards the changes and the goals that they want to achieve. Overt efforts are made to make those changes in their behavior. This is a stage when a person is at the greatest risk of reverting back to old patterns of behavior. So again, it's very important to get the help, to work with your team, to get the support system, to create that lasting change that you really want to make. Stage 5 is considered to be the maintenance stage. This stage involves being able to successfully avoid temptation and not return to old bad habits. People in the maintenance stage constantly kind of recreate new rules for themselves to acquire new skills to deal with life and to avoid falling back into old patterns. This is a time to reflect on the growth or the progress that you've made. A lot of times people are gaining patience with the time that it really takes to make changes and lasting changes, and they see change as being worthwhile in their lives and important to keep focusing on. It's normal to regress a bit, to go back and forth and kind of revert back maybe to a previous stage and to move forward, and that's normal, but it's also important again to keep relying on your team and your support network to just keep cementing the changes and the growth that you've done. Alternately to maintenance is relapse, and so it's important for us to address that because it happens more often than we may hope that it happens, and it's important to address it and delve into it a little bit more deeply in hopes that we can prevent it or we can turn it around real quickly when it does happen. So essentially relapse is a falling from grace. The goal is to get back on track as soon as possible. During a relapse, we need to evaluate what the triggers were of the relapse and to reassess what is our motivation for the goals that we had originally set. What are some of the barriers to meeting those goals that maybe we hadn't anticipated? The goal is to plan a stronger coping strategy and to really, again, rely heavily on our team and our support network to get us back on track. The ultimate stage that we really want to see ourselves in is known as termination. It's the alternate to relapse. Former problem behaviors are no longer perceived as desirable. An example would be if in the beginning of this change process, let's say I'm tired and I really don't want to go to the gym and do my workout, and to me it's perceived as desirable for me to skip that workout, but once I get to this termination stage, it's the opposite. I tend to feel like, gosh, if I miss that workout, I'm really going to be frustrated. I feel a little bit agitated that I didn't get to work out my muscles and get rid of maybe some tension and some negative energy that I had from some stress during my day. So essentially at the termination stage, the new lifestyle feels much more natural, and the rewards of this new lifestyle are outweighing the rewards of the old lifestyle. So to recap, that was just a brief overview of the stages of change. I'm going to delve a bit deeper into each stage with you to help you understand things that may inhibit your growth and the psychological underpinnings of behavior, as well as a systems approach to ideally create lasting change. So as we delve deeper into the pre-contemplation stage, I've lovingly renamed it as excuses, excuses, excuses. So let's look at what prevents us from realistically looking at changing our behavior. The underpinnings of what kind of drives behavior is our belief system, the stories that we believe, the stories we've been told in life. And a lot of times some of our beliefs are things like, well, I couldn't possibly get there, because I've never gotten there before. And so it's essentially a mindset of self-sabotage. Sometimes we have a lot of misinformation. An example of this would be the things that we believe about health maybe stem back to a period of time where what was mainstream was not accurate, it was not helpful. An example of that would be in the 80s. Everybody believed that fat made you fat, and that's not necessarily true. Dr. Baumgartner has gone over the benefits of good fats and how much it helps our brain, our muscles, our tissues, our joints, and really helps our bodies to learn to burn fat. And so, but in the 80s we believed that fat made you fat, and we still see products on the shelves today that identify themselves as low fat, because there are people in our culture that are still believing that fat makes us fat, and they'll buy those products because they're labeled that way. And so sometimes the excuses that we have about making change are based on some misinformation that is not accurate. Sometimes it's just we have really poor self-esteem, we do a lot of negative self-talk, we don't believe in ourselves or our ability to make changes. Sometimes we have a victim mentality. Maybe I think that, well, I grew up in a family that has heart disease and obesity, so I'm just going to have heart disease and obesity. And I think, poor me, and I feel sorry for myself, and I don't even attempt to make changes. Sometimes we view change as a loss instead of a gain. Maybe our community or our support network is a lot of people that tend to eat very poorly, and we have social gatherings around food, and we just perceive that change would be too hard and I'd have to give up all these things that I really like. Sometimes there's a lack of a positive support network. Again, maybe a lot of people in our personal lives have poor lifestyle habits. They are not making good choices, they're not very healthy themselves, and they give us permission to just stay stuck at where we're at. Sometimes we have, again, poor role models, like we don't have immediate access to people who are very successful and have healthy lifestyles. Sometimes addiction is at play here, and where when a person starts looking at their problems and the pain comes from looking at that problem, they numb that pain with some sort of addictive behavior, and they just kind of check out for a period of time to just not have to deal with it. And so that can keep us really stuck in a place where we don't want to be. Emotional eating is a very common issue that we have in our culture. A lot of, if we look at the media, there's a lot of emotions tied to food. If you eat at this restaurant, it makes you feel happy. If you eat this food, it makes you feel calm or gives you peace. And this food is entertaining. And we tend to ascribe all of those emotions to food, which is really only made to ultimately give us nourishment, and instead we use it for entertainment and distraction and making us feel maybe more comfortable. We find those comfort foods, and so those are all some of those barriers that lead us to kind of glomming onto those excuses that keep us kind of stuck in that pre-contemplation stage.